From March 1929, Oscar Stanton DePriest became the first African American to serve in the United States Congress since George H. White of North Carolina left the House in 1901. DePriest was also the first black member from a northern state. Oscar S. DePriest was born in a cabin in Florence, Alabama, on March 9, 1871, to Alexander and Mary Carsoner DePriest, both of who had been slaves. Once freed, his father worked as a part-time farmer while running a hauling business, and his mother found employment as a laundress. Alexander DePriest helped shelter black Republican Congressman James T. Rapier from a lynch mob during Reconstruction. Notwithstanding the threat to his livelihood, Alexander DePriest stood firm. He also refused to shift from the Republican Party of Lincoln to Democrat despite pressure from the former Confederates who had regained control of state government. Nevertheless, when 7-year-old Oscar discovered a neighbor, who had been lynched and riddled with bullets, the family decided to migrate to Salina, Kansas. Fast-growing urban industrial cities to be elected to Congress. Which he had been elected. He became the only voice in Congress for 12 million black Americans. Oscar moved to Dayton, Ohio, and a year later to Chicago, where he earned a living as a painter, decorator, plasterer, and eventually, a realtor. DePriest became affluent through his real estate business and investments in the stock market. Oscar DePriest's career in public service began with his 1904 election to the Board of Commissioners of Cook County, Illinois. He then served on the Chicago City Council from 1915 to 1917 as alderman from Ward 2. DePriest founded a powerful political organization called the People's Movement Club. February 23, 1898, DePriest married Jessie L. Williams of Rockford, Illinois. Like many blacks, the DePriest family moved northward to escape the dire social and economic conditions for blacks in T. When Representative Martin B. Madden died of a heart attack suddenly after securing the Republican nomination to his 13th term in Congress, the Republican machine led by the mayor William Hale Big Bill Thompson supported DePriest for the seat. After narrowly defeating several black opponents, DePriest was sworn into Congress on April 15, 1929. Proud black spectators and the press crowded the House's public gallery. The local press reported a rumor that an attempt would be made to keep DePriest from being seated in the House due to charges of sponsoring and protecting vice and gambling in the colored section of Chicago's South Side. DePriest demanded the state attorney bring the case to trial on 4 occasions and, after the office admitted it was not prepared to proceed, a judge dismissed the case just days before the swearing-in ceremony. He South during Reconstruction. DePriest served in the 71st, 72nd, and 73rd sessions of Congress, where he was assigned to less prestigious committees on Indian affairs, invalid pensions, enrolled bills, post office and post roads. Though limited in his legislative achievements, he fought for blacks to dine in the House restaurant rather than being confined to a separate facility next to the kitchen in the basement of the House. DePriest favored the reduction in the number of seats in the House for states that disfranchised blacks, as George H. White had done years earlier. He attempted to honor and assist former slaves who were 75 years and older by giving them a federal pension. The congressman advocated that federal courts be authorized to change the location of a trial if a defendant's right to impartiality was at risk due to matters of race, color, or creed, as in the infamous 1931 Scottsboro trial where 9 black teenagers had been accused of a gang rape of 2 white girls. Congressman DePriest challenged segregation and racial discrimination and was a staunch advocate of the enforcement of the 14th Amendment. He introduced legislation to make states and counties responsible for the prevention of lynching and spoke ardently for these causes all throughout the South despite threats on his life. DePriest opposed discrimination in applying unemployment relief within the Civilian Conservation Corps and was a champion for Howard University and other historically black colleges and universities. Finally, when newspaper headlines mocked the attendance of his wife at the White House for tea at the invitation of Mrs. Hoover, he forcefully defended her right, respect, and dignity as the wife of a congressman. DePriest said the criticism of Mrs. Hoover's receiving Mrs. DePriest at the White House tea was an incident used by Southern Democratic politicians, seeking to win the Solid South back into Democratic Party. "I want to thank the Democrats of the South for one thing. They were so barbaric they drove my parents to the North. If it had not been for that, I wouldn't be in Congress today. I've been Jim Crowed, segregated, persecuted, and I think I know how best the Negro can put a stop to being imposed upon. It is through the ballot, through organization, through eternally fighting for his rights. DePriest's bid for a fourth term in 1932 received national attention because of his position as the only black in Congress and that his New Deal Democratic opponent, Arthur Mitchell, was also black. Mitchell strongly supported President Franklin D. Roosevelt's federal relief programs, whereas DePriest adopted the Republican position on economic relief as best emanating from the states and local communities. DePriest, defeated by Mitchell, returned to Chicago in